Hey there, welcome to Sprout. Today I'm going to show you how we can put your team's travel on autopilot, getting everyone booked in policy in just a few simple steps and all completely free. Let's jump right in. The first step when it comes to setting up Sprout would be setting up your team's travel policies. You've got tons of options when it comes to policy, and you can also just have one policy or as many as you want for different travelers, different trips, different regions, whatever it might be. And just to show you a few examples of some of the controls you have here, you can set fixed limits for how much travelers can spend on flights, or if you happen to have people coming from all over the place, maybe you set that dynamic limit where you say they can choose any option within the 50% cheapest. Then when they go search for flights, we'll just find out what the average flight price is, and that becomes their budget. That way it works for everyone on the team with just one simple setting. You've also got fare classes, how far in advance they should book for trips, how much luggage the team can bring, etc. And that's pretty much it. Setting up the travel policy is that simple. Once that's done, the next step is to go ahead and create your first trip. So with this big new trip button here, you'll be able to put in a couple quick details like the name of your trip, how many people you think are coming, where you're going to be flying to, and then go ahead and plug in that travel policy you just created. And next, you can choose the dates for your trip and also set a schedule if you want. So if you've got something like a kickoff meeting or different dinners, events, activities, you can go ahead and plug in what time people should arrive by and how long they should stay until on the last day. And then from there, you can also add a hotel to your trip as well. So Sprout helps with hotels even for group trips. We'll do things like negotiating group discount rates, making sure everything's pre-authorized so people can get to the hotel without putting a company card or their own personal card on file for incidentals or the room rate. And as soon as that's done, you can go ahead and press go to trip and your trip will be created. You'll see all the trips happening throughout your entire team on this organization trips page. Every time you create a trip, you'll be able to head to the travelers tab to go ahead and take a look at who's already in this trip and even go add other travelers to this trip as well. You can also just add people by sharing an invite link. And from there, everyone's ready to just go in and book. For travelers themselves, they'll have this My Trips page where they can see all the trips that they've been invited to and go ahead and start booking for any of them. Or if they'd like, go ahead and create a new trip for their own travel. Let's say though, I'm booking for this trip that I've just been invited to for South by Southwest. I can go ahead and start booking. Sprout already knows all the info about where I'm coming from and where I'm going. And so the rest works exactly like any other flight platform, except it keeps in mind the policy that you set at the beginning. So for example, with this trip, I've set a budget of $500. So as a traveler booking for this, I shouldn't be able to book anything out of policy without either requesting approval for that. And so we can see that some of the options here that go over that 500 require approval as well. Now booking is super simple. All I have to do is choose the flights that I want, but let's say I do want to choose these out of policy flights. From here, when I go to confirm my selection after checking luggage or adding seats, I'll have two options. I can either send an approval request to the team with a quick note about why I think the company should cover that for me, or if I'm doing something like a personal upgrade to first class or an extra legroom seat, I can also just go ahead and pay that difference for whatever I'm upgrading to that goes out of policy if I know the company won't cover it. That way the traveler can always get what they want while the company only covers what's in policy. From there, back on the trips page, you'll see that the flight I just booked is now pending approval, which means all the admins got a notification saying that I've requested a flight out of policy. And that takes them right to this approvals page where they can see all the different requests coming through that are pending review. Take a look at any of them and see what flight this traveler is asking for, how much over the budget that is. You can even go see what other flight options that traveler has to see if that makes sense or if there's a better option to recommend to them. And from there, submitting the review is extremely simple. Next, you've also got the trip dashboard. So for any trip you create, and this is especially useful for things like offsites, retreats, conferences, you've got a whole dashboard telling you everything that's going on throughout the entire trip. Starting with how many people are already booked, how many haven't started yet, when people are coming and going. And then you've got the Travelers tab with all the details about every flight the travelers have booked, who hasn't booked yet, letting you do things like set reminder emails for those travelers that haven't booked yet, or even go and book flights for other travelers or assign them a different policy. From there, you also have this view sheet button that gives you a spreadsheet with all the data from the trip. So every itinerary, arrival time, flight number, how much was spent on every flight, anything you can think of, all live updating. So the minute somebody books a new flight or something gets canceled or delayed, the sheet gets updated as well, and you only have to keep track in one place. You've also got the events tab with a calendar view of everything happening for this trip. You can go in and add different meetings, workshops, dinners, conference attendances, things of that nature, and even have team members RSVP to your events as well. Lastly, of course, you've got the spend dashboard where you keep track of everything the team is spending on all your travel. You can see every single transaction, what trip it was for, who it was for. Go ahead and break that down by trip or by user as well if you ever wanted to take a look at that. And the finance and accounting team can always have access to this on their own as well, so they don't have to go through you to get all of that information. The next coolest thing about Sprout is traveler support. So you've got help 24/7 within 1 to 2 minutes, either by phone, email, the chat down here on the website, or even by Slack. We do a lot of proactive support through Slack. Like for example, if a flight gets canceled, we'll reach out to travelers and say, hey, we noticed this flight's been canceled. Here's the next best option we found for you. Let us know if that looks good and we'll get you rebooked. Really just making the day of travel experience a lot easier for those travelers who get disrupted and making sure that you're not getting pinged and having to deal with those types of issues. And here are just a few examples of some of the teams using Sprout today. A lot of the time we get feedback or reviews, it ends up being about that travel support. I think it's really the game changer when it comes to big company trips or team trips, especially because you're saving so much time not having to deal with all those travel related hassles. Now I know what you're thinking, this all looks great, but how do we make money and how can it possibly be free? So essentially we've built a price drop guarantee. On any trip that you book with Sprout, we're trying to get travelers booked as early as possible to get them the best prices on their flights. But what people don't know or just aren't paying attention to, and especially in business travel, is that those flight prices are changing every day. And even after you book something, the prices can go down. So what we do is we track the price of that flight even after you've booked it, and if it ever drops below what you booked it for, we'll go get that difference back and we'll share that savings with your employee. So essentially if we got, let's say, $75 back, your traveler will get $50 in Sprout points that they can use for their next trip, and we'll make, let's say, the $25 on that. So we make money by saving your team more money on travel, and other than that, we don't actually charge anything to use the platform. It's all completely free, no fees, contracts, subscriptions, minimums, any additional markups or hidden fees. It's all completely free to use forever. So what does it look like to get started? All you have to do is create a Sprout account and you get an invite to a shared Slack channel. And then as soon as you set up your travel policy and set up that first trip, you're ready to invite your travelers and get them booking right away. So it's truly something that happens in maybe 20 or 30 minutes, no kind of weeks long implementation or training or anything like that needed. Thanks so much for taking a quick look through our demo. If you have any other questions for me, or even just want to set up some time to take another look through it, or personally ask me any other questions, feel free to use our calendar in the description, or just go ahead and get started with creating an account. Looking forward to some great trips.